Is this thing on? And it is. What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic weekend. Doing a late show tonight, Saturday night. So if you're watching this, chances are your weekend didn't quite go the way that you had planned for it to go. However, happy day after Valentine's Day. Speaking of which, I'm going to jump right into it. Took the car to the drag strip Friday night and had a ball with this thing. Let me just bring you right up to speed real quick. 10-0 at 133.82 miles per hour. There's the time slip. There you have it. So, quick recap of the pass. That is on 100% 93 octane gasoline at Houston Raceway Park. Density altitude was about negative 1,000 feet. So, you'd have thought that if the car was going to run a teen, it would have absolutely done it last night. However, it just didn't happen. Thought it was going to run the number and so close. The big issue that we ran into all night was breakage. I think with a couple of more passes, I would have been able to cover the number. The DA was steadily dropping all night. The problem that we ran into is that cars were steadily dropping all night. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about is taking your car to the drag strip, some of the issues that you're going to run into throughout the course or potentially throughout the course of an evening when the DA gets really good. So before I get into that, let me check in with everybody that has commented yet. Sam Grable's in and Jared Armstrong. What up, yo? What up, man? Got the arm flex. I like it. So here's the deal. Whenever you're trying to chase a number, there's a couple of just nerve-wracking things that come into play. One is always going to be the weather. Is it going to be cool and is it going to be dry and more to the point? Down here, we don't get a lot of that dry. We had some of that on Friday. The second thing is how packed is the track going to be and how often am I going to be able to make a pass tonight? How many runs am I going to be able to get in and do I have enough fuel to do it? All of this stuff is stuff that was rattling around in my head Friday night. Interestingly enough, there weren't that many folks there. Well, you would think that there would be anyway. It was Valentine's Day. So lots of guys didn't quite make it to the track on that day, understandably. And so you would have thought that, maybe you'd get a chance to get more passes in. That would normally be the case. But the problem is that you had cars that were braking left and right. And this is what happens when the DA starts to drop to real low levels. You wind up with a situation that pretty much sucks no matter what. You've got cars that are braking, which means you've got a track that's cooling off. Track gets cold, prep goes away, track doesn't have the traction anymore, and it wound up costing me a pass. It didn't hurt the car at all. Went to launch the car on a pass that and a portion of the night that I absolutely figured would have been a teen, and it just first gear, second gear, just wrapped straight through the gears, wrapped straight to about 6,600 RPM, which isn't very good for my car. Hit a shift, chopped throttle, went to second, went wide open, just pop, pop like that, and that was the end of that pass. So that was the end of the night, and that was on the heels of yet another car breaking down. Add to that, everybody with a street tire on their car decided to show up and try to take advantage of the density altitude, which I would have done too if I were trying to get a number. But kind of a word to the wise out there, if you're going to try to go out there and run a number, put a tire on the back of that car that will actually allow you to run the number, not only safely, but you don't want to waste a pass. And this is one of my biggest reasons for running drag radials daily on cars and trucks that I've owned in the past. If I take that thing to the drag strip, I want it to hook. If I'm playing around with it on the street, I'm wanting it to hook. And quite honestly, at the power levels these cars are at, you don't need to be running around on a tire that's just going to blow off the second you tip into the throttle. That's not necessarily safe. But when you go to the drag strip and you're trying to run it on your daily setup, the problem is if your daily setup just blows the tires off on the street, it's going to just blow the tires off on the track too. And because of that, you tear up the track prep. And look, man, it is what it is. I get it. But we had a lot of street tire cars ahead of us that were running ET Street Rs or drag radials, what have you. Tore the track up pretty good towards the end of the track. Cost a run. These things happen, but it's not the end of the world. I got my 20, and that's really more to the point. As a matter of fact, I'll show you guys that time slip again. There you go, 10.20, almost 134 miles per. So here's the thing. Again, 93 octane. Let's go down the list of stuff that's done and not done to the car. Obviously, you can see drag pack, stock air box, stock air filter, original. No, wait, not the original, but a stock replacement air filter from Mopar. No catch cans, anything like that. Factory manifolds, factory catalytic converters, by the way. Factory catback exhaust, 309 rear gear, floating around right about there, and a transmission tune by yours truly with an engine tune that's pretty much only there to facilitate the transmission tune. So that's it. Very 93 octane friendly tune, and she went out and ran a 1020. Very happy with those results. However, I will say this. I never really expected the car to run a teen, although I've been kind of, yammering about it. I never really expected it to get anywhere close to a teen. That was kind of a pie in the sky type of a thing. But here we are, 10.20, with pretty much anything trailing after it would be a feat. But this thing went 10.20 with a 5. So she was on her way. The car's definitely got a teen in it. I just got to, cut some weight. And that's about it. I mean, there's really nothing else I can do to the car to try to extract anything out of it. After I went to the drag strip last night, I threw it on the computer, data logged it on 93, and everything looked good. Obviously, the mile an hour was there, so the car was happy. Just didn't quite make it. I will say that during the pass, so this is what blew my mind. The car thought that it ran a 10.1 something. The timer actually says 10.1 right now. So even though the time slip doesn't say it, the timer does. So I don't know. There's that. But let me check in with everybody, see what's up with everybody. White Knuckle saying, what up, be awesome, man. Little Miss Revlon was on a tear. Yeah, man, she was. She was absolutely out for blood, no doubt about it. Fast Man's checking in, saying the house, Mr. B. What's up, man? White Knuckles saying, yep, tear, there he is. Daycab saying, what's up, Brian? Sorry your time slips on Instagram earlier. Yeah, you're pulling doors, man. Got the 2 arms. I like it. Yeah, she's doing good, man. As a matter of fact, looking forward to getting the car to the track again. Weirdly enough, though, we got, this is one of those deals where in drag racing you get a little bit greedy. But the humidity was finally pretty low this past Friday, so that was pretty nice. And we're hoping this coming weekend is going to be kind of a repeat, so to speak, of what we had this past weekend. So if that ends up being the case, we'll be in pretty good shape. I don't know that I'll be able to replicate this number though, because I think humidity is going to be higher, and I can say that with pretty much almost 100%. Almost 100% certainty. Let's see. Mark saying, save your video for good mods on the 5.7 Hemi. Getting an old RT, going to put a blower on it. Very nice, man. Should be a lot of fun. Depends on how aggressive you want to go with that build, but I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Honestly, man, just a cam upgrade, headers, and a blower, and you'll be in good shape. You can get there with the stock cam, though, but get there a little bit better with a different camshaft. Jared saying, we are waiting for a few more parts for that old 6-speed to be rebuilt because it's no good no more, man. I know how that goes. Did that not that long ago. Hector checking in saying, what up? Just made it in, man. We just got started, so you're in good shape. Jared saying, what would you do on a 2020 Ram 1500 5.7 asking for a friend? I don't know, brother. How much money does y'all friend got to spend? It just all depends on what the goals are for the truck. Cam intake, 6.4 truck intake, heads. I mean, the sky's the limit. You can get away with a lot on the trucks too. Torque converter is a big one. Drag pack, wheel and tire. It just all depends on what you're up to, but it all works. And man, it's just all about that paper, man. How much money do you want to spend? So what would I do? Man, I would probably cam, long tubes, obviously the tune, and then focus on some weight reduction and a torque converter. Let's see. Ian checking in saying, hey, Mopar family. Ian 392 in here. What's up, Ian? Jeffrey saying, what up, B? I made it in here finally. I like it. So, yeah, check it out. So the car did go a 2 flat, or a 2.0 with a 5, I should say. But eerily enough, the car has gone 20s in worse DA. As a matter of fact, this is the kind of creepy part, and this is kind of the thing that I wanted to talk about and illustrate for you guys. So the car has gone 1020, in other words, 10.2x in positive DA. It's gone 10.2x in 750 DA, 500 DA, 300 DA. It's covered that 20 number. And so the expectation might have been, okay, well, we've got such a much lower density altitude, we're going to have a much better chance of getting that ET. And that's, again, something I wanted to talk about, in terms of power, how does that equate to power? How does that equate to, and how does that power equate to ETs? So to bring you guys up to speed on a supercharged car or naturally aspirated, this really kind of doesn't have anything. It does, but it doesn't have as much to do with turbos as it does for supercharged cars and for naturally aspirated cars. For every 3,000 feet, you're going to lose about, for every, 1,000 feet, you lose about 3%. So in this case, you're going to vary about 3%, from, say, your best pass, right, at 1,000 DA would be 3% more power at 0 DA. Well, the thing is that in this case, that's roughly 20 odd horsepower if you go by, manufacturer's specifications. And what does 20 horsepower get you? Well, in this case, not very much, because the faster you go, the more power you need to pick up incremental gains. And that's the biggest issue here. The car is basically kind of stuck where it's at, that 20 range in normal spring and fall weather conditions, 30s for density altitudes of about 1,500 or so. And that's 1030s, by the way. Get into really crappy DAs, you're looking at 1040s, 1050s. So I'm pretty happy with that, though. I've got about a half of a second variance there. And that's a lot, but that's how much density altitude can affect the car. Or rather, I should say a 0.3 of a second variance. And that's a lot on a drag strip. Have a second. I got a little bit ahead of myself here. Anyway, getting back to it. And the other part of that is how fast is 0.3 of a second? And I was wondering that myself, what is 0.3 of a second? Because on a time slip, it's a big deal. A 1020 something versus a 1050 something. I mean, that's usually a significant difference, which comes with a mile per hour difference. There's a lot that's typically going on there. But strangely enough, the difference is literally the blink of an eye. Typically, if you're just blink like that, that's about 0.3 of a second. So if you can imagine going through the traps, blink, blink, that's how fast 0.3 of a second is. It's just, that's it. But that's about a car length and change at those types of speeds. And to gather up any of that real estate that you're losing takes a lot more than just 20 odd or 30 or even some cases 40 horsepower with cars that are this heavy that are going this fast. So little wonder why there's not a huge variance there. But the cool thing is that the car is running really well, and I can't fault track prep. I can't fault the track. It's just one of those situations where when the DA gets good, guys get their cars out, they get them set to kill, and when they blow up, they make a mess of the track, which basically means that it ruins the evening for everybody that's there. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate that. On the best night ever, could have absolutely had a time slip to really chime about, which would have been a 10-teen something. And then I got to thinking about that. And I go, why in the hell would I even care if this car runs a teen? Number one, it's not supposed to be this quick anyway on 93 octane gas with stock freaking pulleys for that matter, stock catalytic converters. But my thing really has been just to get out there and have fun with the car. And in that role, the car has been flawless. So, I guess the big takeaway is, yeah, it's fun to have a goal and to chase a number. But now that I'm looking at that number, I'm thinking, damn, it wasn't supposed to run that number. It was a joke. It was like pie in the sky shot. And here we are with a potential to be able to cover it. So anyway, kind of fun to chat about, but that's a little bit about how that evening went, by the way. It was a lot of hurry up and wait and a lot of cars letting go that, man, if they would have just been tuned properly and not set to kill, probably would have been a whole lot better off. So let's see, checking in with everybody. Donald checking in, saying, I'm trying to blow some minds with the ME Commander. Finally got my ME in a Jeep so the family can fit in it, so my weekend warrior now. Nice, I like it. Ripped us in, saying, hey, y'all. Saying he got himself a 10.6 with a 1.5 60 foot the other day with a stock Hellcat with just some 17-inch drag tires. Very nice. 10.6 is where they really start getting fun, by the way. He's saying he's super happy about that. Absolutely. Yeah, it's badass. Good job, Rip. Mark saying, honestly, I had to sub when I found someone that knows Mopar. Challengers are my dream car, and I appreciate finding someone that can suggest stuff that won't have my car on the side of the road. Well, man, I do appreciate that very much. And, one thing that I've always tried to convey with any of the advice that I get is just real world applications. I've been around these things for quite a while. And, whether you're into 392s, the 5.7s, or the Hellcats, I've had a chance to play with all of them. Not so much the 6-cylinders, but, the things that I've seen that work really well, the issue is all about budget, money, time, and, are you taking the car to the drag strip, or is this something that you're just playing around with on the street? The Mopar, really the Mopar way of doing things is in a lot of ways just less is more. Not that more doesn't work. It's just that more can cost a lot more than, Ford or Chevrolet. So let's see. But thank you very much. Appreciate the kind words. Ian392 saying, it's a good idea for me to go 275s in the front and 305s in the back wheel on my 392. If you've got an SRT, I used to run the 305 35s on the back of mine. In fact, that was the setup that I ran 1130s with. So, I don't see any problem with that. I think that if you're really going for, actually from an aesthetic point of view, it looks pretty good too. I think that the 275 45 drag radial is actually a better size on that rim in terms of actually getting the best footprint on the street though. And I think that's more to the point. What ends up happening is with a 305, they have a tendency to cup a little bit. And so when you put more air in them to flatten out the contact patch, they kind of have a tendency of having a little bit of a wobble in the pattern. And when I've done pattern testing with the cars, which is basically just going out and lighting the tires up and seeing what it marks down on the ground on the street, they don't really have the best, what's the best way to put it? They don't have the best actual performance, at least not the performance that you would think. I never could understand why they didn't put a 10-inch wide wheel on the back of these cars. It's the dumbest thing in the world. Could have run 305s in the back, 275s in the front with no problems, but I don't know. Here we are. 10 or 10.5 fits just fine. And really, if it were my car, I would probably get a set of replicas, unless you've got the Hyper Blacks, which they don't make replicas for, but I would probably go with a set of replicas either way. Just go with the 10.5s in the back, put the 305s on those things, and you'll get a better contact patch, and the tire will wear more evenly as well. So kind of a long way to tell you to get a different set of rims to run those tires, but you can run them. I have run those tires on those rims on the 9.5s, and they did just fine. So, but they would have done better, and they did do better once I switched to a set of flat black replicas. Ruben checking in with Rift, saying still happy about the other night. Ruben saying, heck yeah, great night of drag racing. I like it. Ruben saying, can't wait to try out running with a tune. Absolutely. Mainly in the trans tune on that car. Ruben's asking, how good do 315 tires fit on narrow body Challengers? 315s. You know what's funny about 315s is it depends on the tire manufacturer. Some of the 315s are actually, or I should say, some of the 305s are about as wide as the 315s. I wouldn't try running 315s. You're not. Let's say it's a true 315 versus a true 305. You're not going to get more contact patch under load with a 315 than you will on a 305. So from a workability standpoint, they're not as good because it's just extra weight because you'll have more width. If that width isn't bearing any load, then it is literally excess weight. You could trim that off and it would be a better tire for it. So stick with the 305s. I think you'll be a whole lot better off. And I think that you'll be, you'll definitely be better off from a fitment standpoint because 315s do have a tendency to rub on the inner fender wheel on Challengers. You get away with them on Chargers, but not on Challengers. HU37 saying, don't you find that once you get below a certain DA, you don't gain all that much? That is, yes. In New England, I find that once temps get below 50, my 60-foot becomes trash. ET, not so much more mile per hour. Man, I'll tell you what, the issue that I've run into with lower DAs typically has to do with the track going away. Once you get into those lower density altitude settings, now you're making more power, which is great, but there's a catch and the track is typically going away because the track is getting cold at that point. My favorite DA to run in is that negative 500 range, that negative 500 to positive 500. That is really the most fun to run in because typically the track will hold together, assuming that you've got dry air, at least in this scenario. But if you've got fairly dry air, the track will typically hold together. And down here, that's, temperatures in the 50s, is typically pretty good. So yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Once you get below that negative 500 mark, it's all about traction and it's all about keeping cars going down the track, keeping tire prep good. Track prep good. And again, heating the tires up enough to where they'll actually grab. So those are the things that start to get to be a little bit more of a pain. And it's also some stuff you just can't really drive around. I've been able to salvage a couple of passes and still run in the 1020s, but you just kind of knew that there was a little bit more left in it, especially when you salvage a pass and it goes 1030 at, what did it do, like 134? Yeah, here's one. Here's a perfect example of that. It's still 60-footed pretty good, but the best mile an hour is on this 1034 at 134.04. Girl was on a hunt that night, but yeah, that's always a bummer. TU's in. What's up, man? Saying the one and only B Mason just checking in for a minute. Brother Revlon sitting pretty in the background. Yes, she is. She put in work too, man. 10.20 at almost 134 miles per hour. So we're almost running that teen with the stock Hellcat. Not too shabby. Loving it. Rip saying, at what power level does having a 309 gear setup make it harder to launch? Once you go double pulley and an aggressive double pulley at that, it's going to depend on the weight of the car. But typically, if you start getting into the ATI, like a 10% or an Innovators West 9% lower with a 275 or a 265 upper, the 309 is going to be a little bit of a pain. You're going to want to switch back to your 262 at that point. But up to that point where the 309 shines in the Challengers is with a 285 or a 275 pulley. I don't like 275 pulleys. They're a little bit on the much side with boost on 93 octane, but you can make a 285 work. In my opinion, 295 is really kind of the sweet spot. But yeah, anyway, the 309 gear will start to sting you a little bit unless you've got a heavier car, like a full weight Charger or something like that. Then I would keep that. Keep the 309 right up until you're up against, say, like a true 10% lower with a 265 upper. I'd probably switch it to the 262s at that point. Also depends on the tire size though, so you got to keep that in mind. That data at least is based off of that rear tire size, 305, 45, 17s. Now, if you go with the larger tires, you can get away with the 309 gear a little bit deeper, or you can get away with the 309 gear on a heavier car, especially with those tires. So just something to consider. We got to remember the Demons and the Red Eyes, you can option those with the 309s, and most of those guys, when they start throwing a lot of power at them, will make the switch to a 15-inch conversion and go with a 29 or a 30-inch tall rear tire. You saying, damn, that's outstanding. Dude, I got to show you. There's the time slip, man, right there. A little bit of my special tuning on the car. What's funny is that there's so little tuning done to this car. I got a lot of people accusing me of doing a lot of things with this thing, and I'd tell you, yeah, this is the most documented Hellcat, stock Hellcat, I think, that's out there. So if I was doing anything goofy with it, man, y'all would know about it first. Let's see, 392 Purple saying, what up, man? But yeah, it's screaming. John G saying, good evening. I have some 309 gears coming Monday. Fresh drag radials came in Friday. You're about to have some fun, my friend. Good job. Let's see. Rip said I ended up settling with a 285 pulley and returned my 260. Yes, definitely a good idea. Here's something else too I want to run by you guys. You know, you got to remember that the supercharged cars, the funny thing is that they could be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing when the temperatures really get low. DA starts dropping. Supercharged cars really start making power, and you got to make sure that your tune is going to accommodate that lots of power that it's going to start to make. One of the other things that you've also got to consider throughout this is if you're going to try to throw a ton of boost at one of these cars, it's probably a good idea to start looking into different fuels before you start messing with pulleys. If you're planning on going with a 2-pulley setup, in other words, a 9 or a 10% lower and a 275 upper, 265 upper, 285 upper, whatever, you are now in E85 territory. Make no mistake about it. I don't care what anybody tries to tell you. If you're running in any decent DA, you are now solidly in E85 territory. And if you try to tune it on butane, it's going to pop. If you try to tune it on 93 octane, forget about it. Your cylinder pressure is going to be way too high, and ain't no amount of fuel you can throw at it that's going to make it act right. So just know that coming into it. I guess I wanted to get ahead of that question before anybody asked it, because it's the other thing is, what am I going to do with the car? Nothing. I'm not putting pulleys on it. I'm not putting anything on this car. I'm having way too much fun with it at stock boost, and I like bragging about doing neat things on stock boost with regular old gasoline. So yeah, we're going to keep it going with what we got right now, because I don't want to make the switch and have to start running a certain percentage of race gas. Because of the DA and where I live, I have to run those types of fuels to maintain a safe knock resistance. Again, if I lived at 2,000 feet, that'd be a different story. I'd be making less boost, and so I would be more or less equalizing boost at that point, being at that altitude. But since we're not talking about me being at altitude, we're talking about sea level. Got to go with what we got right here. Let's see. Riff's saying most likely happy with that setup. Yes. Riff's asking, what was your fastest time before you got a tune? My fastest ET with an uncracked, untouched ECU was the 1047. And that's with the 309 gear. With the 262, I want to say, no, was that with the 262? Damn, no, that was with the 262. With the 309, by that time the weather had changed and we hadn't really run the car in lower DA. But it immediately started running in the 30s with the 309 when I adjusted the throttle settings and threw a little bit of fuel at it. So, but no, I drove the car around with no tune with the 309s for a while. Had a lot of fun with it too. In crappy DA, it went a 1065 or a 1062. Anyway, it went 1060s. I remember that. And that was a pretty warm day too. So depends on how you're looking at it, depends on the DA, but yeah, 1047, and that's with the car with just the drag pack. That was it. I don't even think did I have the rear seat delete in it then? Can't remember. Anyway, 1047 was the quickest on a 262. Let's see. Marco is saying, hey Mason, my Challenger RT chews through tires faster than my buddy who also has an RT. Is this expected, or should I get camber suspension checked? Get it checked out. You might need to get it realigned. It's not uncommon at all for these cars to need a realignment every once in a while. So yeah, get it to an alignment shop, have it checked out. Chances are something's going on in the back. You might be towed out a little bit on one of the rears. Let's see. Ruben's asking, how about a chiller system for the summer? Any thoughts? I like the chiller systems. I like the Killer Chiller. I don't really like the Kincaid kit, mainly because it's just big and bulky. But I like the Killer Chiller, just the standard stock, basic, not all the frills, not all the valves, and all the rest of that crap. I like that setup. One thing that I would caution on that, though, is that although they're a foolproof system and they work just fine, I don't really have one. I don't really rely on one. And my car seems to do pretty good. In hang on. I got some time slips just happen to be sitting around here. In 2,700 feet with a tune in it, by the way, that was not as good as the tune that's in it now. My car is running 1058 at almost 131. So to give you an idea, this is from August 16th. Air density online was 2773, 92% air density. Grains were 135 on this day, by the way. And it went that 1058. Actually, funny thing, this was at Mopar Fest. This is the pass that punted me right out of bracket racing because I had dialed in a 1061 thinking that I was going to be a little bit slow, and it went at 58. So it actually went faster than it should have. So, yay. But the chiller systems, they're okay. And the other thing, too, a lot of guys like to run the water tanks in the back of the car. I don't know, the jury's still a little bit out. If I were doing half-mile events, I would absolutely do that. But for the quarter-mile stuff and just for playing around on the street, you don't really need it. It's not going to help you out too much. Let's see. Dr. Differential's in saying, what up, B? What's going on, man? Let's see. John G is asking, what size rear tire do you race with? It is a 305 45 17. Let's see. Make sure I am not missing anything. Marco's saying, oh, thank you, I will. Yeah, get it checked out, man. See what you can find on that. And I think that's going to help you out quite a bit. Ian392's got 2 thumbs up. Appreciate it, man. So anyway, getting back to the passes, though, like how much does DA really matter once you get below a certain DA, right? And it all matters based on the altitude that you live at and the humidity that you're working with and the track prep. So the humidity comes into play in 2 different areas. 1, high humidity is going to kill power. 2, high humidity wrecks the track. That dew, that mist or whatever that you get on your car, that's getting on the track also. And if you don't have car after car after car after car going down that drag strip, that's kind of, wiping some of that real light dew off and keeping that dew off of the track, it builds up. And that's why you can get into some pretty hairy situations with your track once the temperature and everything, the DA really starts to drop. And this is what I was going to start talking about a minute ago was, man, I shouldn't have gotten greedy on that last pass. I did try to launch it. It was like it was on ice. Tack flashed right over and just whap. First gear. In fact, the predictive shift caught it because you could, and I'll try posting the video up, but you can hear it chop throttle, comes back up, whacks again, and it goes full power again. it has to chop throttle again and it goes into third. I think the car still ran an 11.1 though. But in fact, I got, once it whacked, it actually lit up so quick, I pulled my foot off of it as fast as I could. It had already gone through the 2 gears. Got completely out of it, rolled back into it, and just rolled out of the pass because it was just kind of a waste at that point. But again, it was just me getting a little bit greedy on the trying to just get that last bit of density altitude. And I knew the track was going away. I knew that it was going to be pretty dicey at best. And then the other issues that we had a ton of street tire cars ahead of us that just wiped out what little track prep they tried to do to bring it back to life. So yeah, there's that to consider. So but Rift is asking right now, I think what I want to do, or what I want to get for my Hellcat while it's still stock PCM with no tune, is some Demon suspension along with installing a killer chiller. Yeah, the springs, there's a lot of guys that are liking those Demon. The Carlisle, I think, is who makes him. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that are talking, or that are giving those, really talking up those Carlisle springs, really giving them a good review. So yeah, I'd say if it's in the budget, go for it. Let me think about this. We got one guy that's running those right now, and the car launches real pretty. So not for nothing, but that car, when it launches, it looks the part. So the front end comes way up when he launches it. Let's see. Rip is hanging out with Ruben here for a minute. Ian saying, hey, Mason, do you have an automatic or is your Challenger a 6-speed? It is an automatic. I'm not a big fan of these cars, the Hellcats with the manual transmission. It has nothing to do with me liking or not liking manuals. In fact, one of my favorite cars is the 392 cars with a 6-speed manual. The reason why I don't like these with the manual is that the first gear, it's the same TR6060 that comes in the Viper, and because it's the same transmission, that first gear is like a 228 or a 226. Anyway, it's too long of a first gear, and the car is too heavy really for a gear ratio that's that long in first gear, and so it just feels like it's a little sluggish. In fact, if you drive a 392 car, if you're just putting around with it, just not really in it to win it, just playing around with it, it actually feels a little bit more responsive. Now the Hellcat, once you start showering down on it and rolling through the gears, yeah, it wakes up pretty good. Don't get me wrong, but that first gear makes those things pretty difficult to launch. It takes a lot of practice. So, and it's not the same as saying, well, if it's got the same transmission, what about the Vipers? The Vipers are a lot easier to launch because when I'm driving a Viper, it's a lot lighter and the torque is a lot more linear. So I can start off at, say, 4,500 RPM and just kind of feed power into it real quickly. And they act just fine because they weigh about 1,000 pounds less than these cars do. So Speed Freak saying, good to see Professor Mason. Congrats on the 1020 this week. Got the arm flex. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Yep, she's doing good. Definitely doing good. Rich saying, I noticed that manual mode and the Hellcats does not really do much of anything different from just having the paddle shifters on. My understanding is that there's a different protocol with the line pressure that they'll command. Or at least this is what I've noticed. The paddles, the floppy paddles, typically, it's like they command the track protocol, which is where it gets a more noticeable throttle chop in between gear changes, mainly to not upset the chassis so much. The console shifter is almost more like sport mode. So anyway, when I do the burnouts, I use the floor shifter and just go 1, 2, or 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then roll out of it, and that's it. I never, what's funny is I always forget that my car has the paddle shifters. I never, ever use them. Let's see. Speed Freak 93 saying, test drive a 392 Challenger this week for a daily driver. I now see what you mean with more fun on the street versus a Hellcat. Usable and fun power. Man, I'm telling you, the perfect daily would be a 392 Charger if you needed the extra room, but the 392 Challengers are a riot to drive around, bone stock. And again, doing a lot of mods to a 392 doesn't really get you all that far. You got to throw a lot of money at them before they're really going to start to give you some, get a lot of return, I guess, or you're not going to get a lot of return for your money. But in stock form, they're a shitload of fun to play with, no doubt about it. I mean, they light the tires up, seemingly one of the more fun cars to play with on the street because, yes, certainly more usable power. And here's the other thing. Throw a drag radial on that thing. In fact, that was when I had Shalandra, that was our road trip car, and we rode that thing all over central Texas on those Nitto Tri-5Rs in monsoon, rain, all kinds of crappy weather, and car always did great, always did just fine, never had any problems with that car in the rain. And on top of that, if I wanted to go mess with Hellcats on the street, it was easy to do because it looked like easy pickings because it had the 392 badge. Not so much. But a chase is a race, right? Ian saying, what do you think about the 1320 Challenger? I like them. I don't really see my only beef with the 1320, they did a lot of good things, but they could have done a lot of those good things and put a 426 in the car. They could have done everything that they did to the 1320, but make it special. And the problem is, it's not special to me. I would, in some ways, rather have a Scat Pack core than a 1320. It's basically the same thing without, a line lock or whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, most guys are foot braking these cars anyway. And I mean, dude, I was running 1120s, 1130s with 392 cars way before the 1320 was even a thing. The other thing about the 1320 is even if they didn't come out with, a 426, they could have put a rear gear ratio in that car that made more sense for the 1320. In other words, for the drag strip. It will forever bewilder me why ZF wasn't contracted to make a 3.30 gear ratio for that housing. It would only serve to make every 392 car significantly quicker and pick up mile an hour on the back half of the track. But yet everybody's still shackled with the same 309. It sucks, man. So anyway, I guess if you're asking me what I think about it, a neat car. It's cool from a novelty point of view, but it's way too little, way too late. And I think it's a little bit of a fleecing of the Mopar loyalists. I think what they should have done is done something to make that car special and then turned it loose. And if that would have been the case, I would have picked one up. No doubt about it. If they'd have said, hey, we got a 330 gear, we've got aluminum block, or we've got this different or that different intake manifold, whatever. This is our naturally aspirated street legal effort. I'd have been in on it. But since Mopar doesn't support their own clan, it makes it difficult for me to support Mopar in that respect. So early release 2015 sits behind me now. Hellcat. Ruben's asking, what was the ET difference with your trans tune? About a tenth to a tenth and a half. Depends on the DA. But it was a solid tenth to a tenth and a half for sure. Rift is asking, and that was consistent, by the way. So about a car length. I had a Rift to say, and I had a 2008 SRT8 with an auto, and now I have a 2009 6-speed SRT8. I will say that even the 6.1 does not feel very good with a stick. I don't know what it is, but they just feel sluggish. Yeah, a lot of them will say that. I like the 6.1 cars with the nag 1. It's a fun car, but yeah, you're right. The 6-speed 6.1s were. But you got to remember, the car is still heavy, and the 6.1 just does not make the torque that the 6.4 does. So there was that to consider also. Let's see. Speed Freak saying, salesman said, get on it, 30 miles an hour into the throttle as the tires lit up. Not the violent, crazy Hellcat feel, but gave us huge smiles. Yeah, for sure. No, they're fun. They're usable. And that's the thing about the 392 is that they are solid, usable power. The only thing that the 392 lacks is a top end rush. And that's where the Coyote really, really kicks the shit out of a 392 is in that top end pull. But you got to remember that, we're talking about Mopars here, and Mopars do bottom and mid range power better than anybody out there right now. I mean, from a horsepower per cubic inch or horsepower per weight standpoint, they're still very strong. And the other thing to consider is just the weight of these vehicles. It's real hard to get an engine to make power up top when it's hard to justify making an engine make power up top when you've got to move a car that weighs as much as these LX platforms do. So, but yeah, I'm right there with you. That 30 hit is a lot of fun. And another reason why the 6.1 had to change, because with the Coyote coming out, that 6.1 was going to get stung pretty hard. Rip is saying, I have a Procharger on my 6.1 at 12 pounds, and with the 6-speed, it is a letdown still. The problem might be more to the fact that it's a Procharger than anything else. The thing is that the car needs torque to get moving and to stay moving because it's a brick and it's got no aerodynamicals. So, Procharger, I mean, it plays well with those engines. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of know what you mean because I've driven a lot of Procharged versions of this car, and I know what you're talking about. And something music saying, brother, I need to do any, let's see. Well, I need to do anything to my 2019 Scat Pack to run straight pipe without the CEL coming on. If you want to run a straight pipe with something like that, you're going to probably want to get it tuned. There are some guys that have gone the MIL eliminators. Basically, they're just simulators for the cats, for the secondary cats. There's that if you're going to try to run straight with no catalytic converters. If you just want to do straight pipes, meaning after the catalytic converters, which is no resonators and no mufflers, you can still do that as well. But you will need to do one of two things: either turn off the butterfly valves in the tune, or get the who makes them? I just turn them off in the tune typically, and then kill the or rather, I should say, I kill the code in the tune for that butterfly valve. Or there are companies, Modern Muscle and HHP sell the lockouts for those things. Basically, they're just simulators for the butterfly valves. But I would prefer to do it in the tune because they're kind of a pain in the ass to graft those butterfly valves into the new setup that you're putting together. So if you're wanting to run straight pipe straight through, tune's the best bet. Kind of a long way to get to that one. Saying also, thanks for getting on here, sharing knowledge. Last question, do you lose power with straight pipes? It's hard to justify saying that you lose power with straight pipes, mainly because your muffler, if you're a 392, let me go back and take a look here. I'm assuming you're 392. If you are, you've got and I'm going to say this, if you're going with a 2.75 inch pipe, okay, if you go 3 inch, this is going to change things a little bit because you're going to lose some velocity with it. And in that respect, you can lose a little bit of power. But if you do a true straight pipe design and you're using no larger than 2 3/4 inch pipe, you're really not going to lose any power because you're not losing the velocity through the system. The big issue that guys run into is that they'll try to run a 3-inch system. And the problem is with that is that you lose velocity. Losing velocity means that you're losing scavenging. And you got to remember that you're running a set of short tube headers. Running a set of short tube headers with that large opening means that when the pulse hits that 3-inch pipe, it basically goes flat dead, creates the vacuum like it should, but you don't get the scavenging effect at lower RPM And that's the issue that you're running into. It's losing torque down low. And you're not really picking up any real horsepower up top with it. So there's no real net gain. In other words, again, a long way to get to the point here. Stick with a 2 3/4 inch pipe. You'll be just fine. The mufflers are flow through, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference in terms of flow one way or another. It's not going to pick up anything in terms of performance, even if you stick with the same diameter of pipe, except for the fact you may lose a little bit of weight with the muffler. So there's that. Hopefully that answers the question. Rip is asking, why do you think they have not put the red-eye motor in a Charger yet? Good question, and I'm not really sure why that is. You got the Hellcat floating around out there, and maybe that's the reason why. The Hellcat's already a really solid and extremely robust combination. It's very difficult to hurt one of the Hellcat platforms. So, why not the red eye? I'm not sure. Quite honestly, though, if I'm being, I don't know, if we're just having a conversation here, I'm surprised that the Hellcat engine is even still around. I mean, I thought that the red eye was supposed to supersede the Hellcat, and so far as this little girl is concerned, she's not obsolete anytime soon. So, I don't know. Good question. But I would think that we would see a red eye version of that Charger soon enough, right? I don't know. They seem to be putting Hellcat engines in practically everything these days, so who's to say? Let's see. Ruben's asking, what RPM did you set in your trans tune? Good question. These are some things that I don't actually give up, but it's not very high. I will tell you that it is less than 6,400 RPM, and it is more than 6,200 RPM. But I also do a blended shift pattern. So I'm different shift patterns leading out as I'm going down the track. So it's a long way to say that I read between the lines on that. But that is that's proprietary information. Let's see. And there's something music saying, I'm going to try to do it without tune. Okay, good deal, man. Yeah, get those lockouts. I think you'll be in good shape. Let's see. Quick break. What's up, man? Saying, sorry I'm late to the party, so this may have already been discussed. 392 is all about the cumulative effect in terms of combination of mods that are tuned to work in concert to maximize performance. Or you can just rip the interior out of the car and call it weight reduction. Well, there is that. So, if we're talking about 392s, it really is a cumulative effect, and it's a cumulative effort leading into it. One of the bigger issues that we run into is, where do you start and where do you stop? It takes all of the accumulation to get where you are. It's not that there's any one magic bullet that's going to be the one thing that gets that ET where it needs to be. It's going to be all of it in concert together. It's like having a band without a drummer. It doesn't really work that well. And each individual part does play a very important role. So when we're talking about ported intake manifold, ported throttle body, we're talking about long tube headers, we're talking about the tune, we're talking about everything that goes into the thing leading up to heavier or harder parts to swap out, like cams and things like that. All of that does add up. It is a cumulative effect, and the biggest, the conductor of the whole thing is the tune. You can't do any of the hardware without having the software change. So it can get expensive. It is a lengthy process, but the end result is certainly worth it. And the end result is, oddly enough, an outperformer based on what the car will actually put down on a dyno. In other words, it punches way better than its gains would suggest that it would gain. So, but good point there, my friend. Speed Freak 93 saying, I'm in need of a drag pack for my Hellcat. What's a good setup with a budget of $2,000? Something I can run 305, 45, 17 tires on the street as well. Go with some of the Dark Stars, man. I mean, that's kind of the easy like fallback setup. They're not that expensive. You can typically pick them up used. I mean, they are kind of a track weapon type of a setup, meaning that they're going to get beat up. But, you know, I wouldn't necessarily shun them. They're a little heavier than the Welds, but I feel like they're a little bit more robust. The F14s look good too. The Forge Line or Forge Star, whichever one they are, those rims look fantastic. They are robust as well. The main thing is you want to have something that's going to stand up to the weight and the loads that this car is going to put out. I don't like running lightweight, like ultra lightweight welds on a car that weighs well over 4,000 pounds. It makes the kind of power that these do. It's just asking a lot for a lightweight part. Let's see. HU37 saying, I find that lighter cars tend to do better with centrifugal superchargers and heavier cars like Chargers and Challengers do better with positive displacement. They absolutely do. And again, you just need that extra torque to get these monsters off the line. If you don't need the extra torque, if you're already lighting the tires up with your NA combination, then maybe a centrifugal supercharger will do well for you. But if the car weighs more than 4,000 pounds, probably traction and more torque is going to do a whole lot more for you than relying on a centrifugal supercharger to try to get that thing out on anybody on the big end. Lone Wolf Customs checking in and saying, hey, B, what's up, Lone Wolf? Brian's checking in and saying, hi, I'm asking for some advice on going E85 in my full bolt-on cam scat. I'm hearing I should go ProFlex Commando or the Walbro 450 with bigger injectors. I'm not sure what to do. No, you need to go with the in-tank, go with the fourth. Well, actually, hold on. Technically, you don't have to do anything. If you're going to be going E85 on an FBO, even with a cam, you shouldn't have to put any fuel system in the car. Now, if you are going to go with boost or nitrous or something like that, along with your 85s, then I would go with the 450 at that point. So just make sure you get the 450 that is rated for alcohol. It's very important that you do that. But just in general, you do not have to go with a different separate fuel pump or fuel system in a 392 to go E85. The injectors, Fuel One makes a set of 650s that are really good. Hellcat injectors can be good. However, that's a budget route, and those injectors cannot be cleaned and rebuilt. So just something to consider on that one. Never, ever, ever buy a used set of Siemens injectors because they cannot be rebuilt and they can actually kind of go bad. So the fuel injector connection makes a really good set of 650s. It's another great way to go. And those are going to be the injectors you're going to need to pick up. Let's see. Rip is saying Raystar, Recluse are cheaper money-wise and damn good, and they are good. The other good thing about those is that they use regular Acorn-style lug nuts, so you don't need to get the shank lug nuts. Are easier to take on and off. A little bit heavier, but a lot easier to work with. So certainly an option, no doubt about it. HU37 saying, I own a Mustang and typically shift around 7,100. The higher RPM makes driving the car with a centrifugal supercharger more fun. Yes. And on top of that, Ruben saying, thanks, B. Mason. No problem. I think he was able to figure out what I was getting at there. The thing about the Mustangs with the centrifugal supercharger is that they breathe so well on the big end, and their intake manifold allows for a lot of flow. And that's what centrifugal superchargers need. The last thing they need to have is any restriction due to that intake manifold, the way that you kind of run into that with the Hemis. So, yeah, the Mustangs with a centrifugal supercharger, by the way, if you've never driven one, you're missing out because they're a freaking riot. Rip's saying, I got my drag pack wheels off for less than $1,000. There you go. I like it. Steve was asking, what do you think about the Ford 7.3 in terms of possibly becoming a modern pushrod V8 swap for old school performance instead of an LS? Man, dude. So here's the thing. That engine's actually surprising me quite a bit. That's going to be an awesome option for repowering. But here's the thing, it's never going to be in the realm of the LS in terms of availability. That's the only downside to that engine. It's going to probably remain kind of pricey, although I hope I'm wrong. You're going to see a ton of those engines out there. I just don't know how cheap they're going to be and how supported they're going to be in the aftermarket. But that being said, it's got the Ford emblem on it. And if that's the case, the aftermarket is going to flock to it. And already what folks are seeing is that they can extract quite a bit of power out of those engines with just real basic modifications. So the heads are amazing. The intake's pretty good too. It's basically like having a really properly done stroker Hemi more than anything else, just in terms of head flow rates and things like that. Those heads flow just a little bit less than the 6.4 and 5.7 heads do. So yeah, I make a shitload of power. But it's all going to come down to cost, honestly, at that point. So one thing I will say about it is at least it gives Ford a viable option, especially if you've got a Fox body or something like that, you know, to put a Ford in your Ford. But one thing that is going to sting it is that it's not optioned with an aluminum block, which that's kind of a big deal if you want to build an NA car for weight transfer and just the typical balance of the car. But I don't know, for 440 cubic inches, I think I could deal with a little bit more weight up front. I don't know. It's yet to be seen really what that engine is going to end up, what kind of longevity it's going to have in the marketplace, how many they're going to make. Are they going to be super expensive? Are they going to be cheap? What's the deal with that thing? I don't know. It's going to be tough to beat the LS, though. I can tell you that. Let's see. Ruben's saying, it's saying, I was surprised how much your 18x5 Recluse weighs. That's why I'm getting some. Yep. Quick break. Oh, damn. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thing just popped up. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the rest of us. Man, I truly appreciate that, brother. Thank you so very much. Damn. I don't know what to say, man. Thank you. Dude, you didn't have to do that. But thank you very much for the contribution to the cause, my friend. I appreciate that. Gas money. Thank you so much, man. I truly appreciate that, brother. Damn. Thanks again. Let me get back to it. Give you a shout tomorrow, man. Lone Wolf Custom saying, I've had to replace 2 Hemis for customers that blew their engines because of leaky injectors filling the cylinders. You know what's weird is we had that happen to a 3.6 Mustang. We had an injector hang open and literally fill the cylinder with fuel. It was real weird. Hydrolock the motor. It was bad deal. So yeah, it's kind of a freak accident, but it's certainly something that happens. It can happen for sure. Thanks again, brother. Appreciate that. Thumbs up. Horde Relations saying, what up, B Mason? What tire are you running on those Dark Star fronts? 17x4.5? No, they are 18s, and they are the Mickey Thompson. Hang on. Ah, crap. What are they? They're 18-inch rims, and they are the 18x6s. Anyway, they're the 18x6s, Mickey Thompson, and I run them at 75 to 80 PSI. So these are the ones that they were talking about. Basically, they were, I think the guy said they were developed or co-developed with somebody for the Hellcats at this weight range. One thing I say, they're the SRs. You know, the hell? Yeah, Sportsman SR 18x26. They're 6 inches wide. One thing that I love about them is that they are extremely smooth at high speed. I can't say enough good things about them. The only downside is that they are heavy, but I'm cool with that because that heavy, robust tire is extremely stable, even at highway speeds, cruising to the track, just driving the thing around. Braking, I've had to, do a couple of evasive maneuvers with it. No issues. I've had this thing spooled up to some pretty significant speeds, if you know what I mean. And even around corners, I didn't really notice too much of an issue with them. So definitely well worth the tire, or well worth the cost. Probably one of the few tires that you'll ever buy that it surprises you how good they are for what they are. But again, a little on the heavy side, but I'm all right with that. Speed Freak saying definitely generous on you, quick brick. Mason's man for sure. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Thanks again, brother. Hort's asking, those clear the big 6 pots? Yes, they do, but I mean barely. And I mean barely. So you're going to need to use the old hammer-on weights on the back of it, because if you don't, even one layer of weights on that rim, the stickum weights, yep, they're going to hit the caliper. So hammer-on weights on the back. Floyd saying, I found a dealership up here in Virginia that has 42 2019 Challenger Hellcat 8-speed autos with cloth interiors for $52,704. Is that a good deal at 13 grand off MSRP, you think? Yeah, I'd say it's a great deal. It's a stripper model, but yeah, if they've got that many of them, I would say jump on them pretty quickly. That's a smooth deal for a brand new, basically a base model Hellcat, but still, it's a great platform to get started with. But that's an awesome deal, man. 52 up in Virginia. I want to jump on that. And I think that's something you're going to see a lot more of too, is, with there being so many more Hellcat variants now, I think the Durango's going to get it, the Jeep's got it, the Charger, the Challenger, the truck that's coming. There's everything is Hellcatized, right? So don't be surprised to start seeing the prices of some of those come down. The only thing about the Hellcat that drives me nuts, and I can kind of understand why in one respect, but when you look at, if you just put a 309 gear and a drag pack on a Hellcat, it puts you really deep into red eye territory. And I mean, like deep into red eye territory. So a little feather in your cap there if you got a Hellcat. They are not that far off from the red eye at all when you equip them the same. DESRT saying, question for you, brother. I ordered 26-inch tall Mickey front runner instead of the 28. Do I need 28s or are the 26s okay? I would go 28s. I really would. I'd go 28s because the 26s are a little bit too short. I had originally, before these tires came out, there was a 28-inch tall variant. I can't remember the damn size of the thing. Anyway, it was a little bit on the low side. With these sit pretty nice. In fact, let me look at something here. Let me see real quickly. Is this thing? I can't see shit in this. It's right in a shadow. I can't see it. Anyway, yeah, the 28s. The 28s are definitely the way that you're going to want to go, though. No doubt about it. Would not get the 26s. Floyd's asking, do you know of any dealers having killer sales on Hellcats any closer to our part of the country? Not really. But, if you go in and I tell you what, Bayway in Baytown would probably take care of you. I had originally bought my car, the 392 was bought at Healthman. I probably wouldn't go back there. I bought, not because the people, it's just, they're not going to work with you on price. River Oaks isn't going to work with you on price probably at all. And Northwest Dodge, man, I wouldn't buy a Snickers bar from those people. I used to have a great relationship with that dealership, and I wouldn't let them wash a Hot Wheels. But Bayway in Baytown will probably work with you. So I would try them. Rattle their cage, see what they'll do for you. Ian 392, what year is your Hellcat, brother? Is it a huge platform Challenger? don't know what that means, but it is a 2015, and she is an early release 2015. Her birthday is November 19th of 2014. Let's see. Riff is asking, saying at Horde, yeah, you wouldn't be able to fit 17s on the front. Nah, you can't. You can fit 17s on the front of a Demon, and you can fit 17s on the front of a Scat Pack, but you cannot put 17s on the front of a Hellcat or an SRT. Yeah, you'd never get it on there. Got to go 18s. And Horde saying, Rift, every time I go to order drag skinnies, my eyes gloss over and they don't get ordered. Yeah, I know that's right. The cost of these things can become a little bit astronomical. No doubt about that. And that's again, that's part of it. And, I know a lot of guys with their drag packs, they really start getting into the weights and things like that. But again, with cars that are this heavy, I'd like to err on the side of caution. I would love to run a set of bias plies front and rear on this thing. It'd save probably another 15, 20 pounds in weight, but it kind of, in a way, it almost goes against I keep calling it the mission statement, but it's kind of true. It would go against that mission statement a little bit to go with the bias ply and really try to nth degree this thing. I'm sure that if I would have done that, I could have picked up a few more hundreds and it'd have gone like a 1017 or a 1018, but in completely street legal trim, by the way, all the way down to stock catalytic converters, the whole bit, the car still covered a 1020. So definitely good on this thing. Riff saying, I was the same way talking about the pricing of these things. But yeah, that's really the long and short of it. But I wanted to bring that to you guys again. Where'd it go? Here you go. There is the time slip. By the way, the first time slip was at 10:23 of the night. And that was the second pass, 10:20 at 133.85. Hopefully that's focusing. Is that focusing? Are we there? There we go. Sort of. Anyway, there's your time slip. When a 1483 60 foot, for you 8th mile guys, 6.544 at 107 1/4. And then through the traps at 10.205 at 133.82. So just that quick heads up there. Let's see, Horde saying, I've also been waiting for the Mickey Thompson since Demonology said they were being developed at SEMA last year or 2 years ago. Yeah, I don't know which ones those are anymore. I've already forgotten all about them. I can tell you that these have been phenomenal. If there's another tire out there, that Mickey's developing, I don't know which one it is, but these are awesome. Again, little bit on the heavy side, but I'll take the extra weight to gain the extra stability on the back half of the track. And again, this thing going down the freeway, you don't even know that it's on skinnies at all. It just smooth as silk. So, trying to think what else I was going to, so getting back to track conditions and things like that, some of the headaches that you run into when you start getting into these deeper DAs is a lot of it having to do with guys in their cars braking. And everybody wants to get out and run that hell of a number, right? But you've got to nut and bolt these things before you take them to the drag strip when it starts to get cold. And also take a look at tires. How old are the tires? The car's going to be making more power. Make sure you've got a fresh set of tires on the thing. It's got a good oil change in it. Don't have your tune set to level 20 kill mode if you've never run the car at level 20 kill mode in any other DA other than, oh my God, it's going to be cold tonight, let's throw some more timing at it type of a scenario. Believe it or not, that scenario plays itself out more than you might think. And the funny thing is that not only does it play itself out more than you might think, that's what costs people the most money, is trying to get greedy with that little bit more timing. Oh man, it's going to be colder. It'll like more timing. It'll take more timing. These things don't take it, okay? It's not like you're putting this thing through a physical fitness regimen, okay? It'll take more timing. It can take it. No, it will take as much timing as you want to throw at it, given the fuel quality that you throw at it, until metallurgy conditions. In other words, you exceed metallurgical parameters, and that's when those things break and then turn themselves into buzzsaws and chop through your block and create a complete and total nasty mess. So, but that's what ends up happening. That's the mentality. So, I don't know. I guess my only real advice on that is if you're trying to cover a number, just make sure you've covered your other bases before you start throwing more timing at your contraption, trying to get that last just a little bit in it. Let's see. Ruben's saying, we appreciate the Q&A. Appreciate y'all, man. Very much so. John G's asking, what do you think your car will run in the heat or summer as it's set up now? Well, funny you should ask, John, because I've got this time slip with the tune that wasn't, it's not that big of a difference between the tunes. There really isn't. But these were the conditions. It was DA was 2773 on air density online. 92% air density with 135 grains, go figure, and it ran a 1058 at 130 and almost 131 miles per hour. Now, what do I think it'll run now? Somewhere around a 10.5 flat in the 3,000 foot DA range. It should be around a 10.5 flat to a 10.55 would be my guess. And speed around 131 and a half ish miles per hour. That's what I would guess based on how it's running right now. Mile an hour, maybe 130 and a half, 131. I'd like to see a little bit more mile an hour out of it. Oh, for you guys that are doing horsepower calculators. So 133.85 miles per hour. The car weighed 4,440 pounds with me in it. So there's your tail of the tape. No, I'm sorry, 4,435 pounds with me in it because I ran it a little bit shy on fuel. Let's see. Riv saying, indeed, got the arm flex. I like it. Speed Freak 93, as Revlon sits, what would it need to break into the nines? Pulley swap or any chance it can be done on stock boost? Now, you can absolutely do it on stock boost. So it would take a lighter wheel and tire package. So put it on a set of welds, throw it on a set of bias plies, at least for the front, and leave the ET Street R's in the back. That's really more to solidify it, but leave this if you had to, but leave the tire set up and the wheel set up alone. You would have to do E85, throw more timing at it, pull the front seat out, and maybe do front and rear bumper supports. I could throw probably 3 or 4 more degrees of timing at it with E85 and really pick up some power with it and run it out the back door to probably mid to high 980s, certainly in the 990s for sure. But it would take some obnoxiously good air also to make that happen. So typical tricks, take more weight out of it, put a fuel in it that is going to require significantly more timing to make work properly, and you can go from there. The problem with that is the switch to E85 and the injectors that you would need to get, and it would be a bit of an ordeal, but it's certainly doable. And again, I mean, we're only talking about 0.2 here. We're not talking about half of a second. We're talking about a pretty doable combination here. It'd be a little bit of a change in the transmission tune as well. Couple of tricks that I could probably employ to drag a little bit more out of it on E85 with that extra torque. But man, I think that would pretty much wrap it up. I think that the stock record, The stock record's standing right now at like a 989 or a 992. I can't remember. And I'm pretty sure that I can get this thing at least into the 990s, if not the 980s, with a switch over to E85 and quite a bit of timing thrown at it. Could possibly do it on a different race gasoline, though. You could probably do it on MS109, tuned specifically to MS109 or Sunoco 260 GT Plus. You could still throw a pretty decent amount of timing at it and probably drag a little bit more out of it, but it would be tough to say exactly how much. Probably get into the high 990s at that point. That might be a fun thing to do next year. Horde's asking, B Mason, is there any way to get a hold of you for a tune? You work for Pikes Performance, right? Mine is coming up for warranty, and I'm ready to play a little bit. I am still associated with Pikes, but I don't work for him directly anymore. If you get a hold of Alex Pikes, he can get you sorted out. So just check out Pikes Performance Tunes, and they will get you squared away. Alex is the man when it comes to tuning these things. So turn your car over to him, and it will be fast. More importantly, it will be safe. And tell him I sent you, by the way. Let's see. Horde Relation saying, I will be road tripping to Houston in April. Could bring my Challenger. Very nice. Yep. Get a hold of them, and they can get you squared away on the spot, my friend. Let's see. Rip saying, June for me. Oh, he's coming in June. So same here, but I got a tune set up to go with Hemi Fever already. And then Rip saying, going to move to someone else for a tune soon after. So yeah, like I said, when it comes to the tuning thing, you know, this is the funny part of it. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. And when it comes to Hemis, there really is a right and a wrong way. You can skate by with some things with the wedge motors, which would be the LS stuff, basically. You can kind of sneak by with some things with those engines. But when it comes to the Hemis, man, they're a lot more sensitive to timing. A lot more sensitive than you might think. And the other thing is that, you know, there's just not as much aftermarket support for them. So you got to work within and tune within the parameters of the stock parts. But, you know, once you get past that, you can actually drag quite a bit of power out of these things, and they can be a whole lot of fun. But again, like Quickbrick was talking about earlier, great point. Not one thing that you do to these cars is going to pick up a significant amount of power. I don't care which thing that you say it is. A camshaft, porting the intake, throttle body, tuning it, all of it. It just, for every little bit that you fiddle with, you pick up and you step just a little bit more. It's just, you're taking these, you're coming up the ladder. Each one is just a rung. And so because of that, guys can get a little bit discouraged with these cars, 392s in particular. They just don't pick up as much. But what you don't see on a dyno, what you do see at the drag strip, are the car lengths that you'll put on a stock car, especially if you tag them from a roll. It's just the way that it works out. So keep that in mind when you're getting your car tuned. Don't look for huge gains on the dyno. Look for huge gains in the way that the car feels to drive. That's going to be the big tell for you. It's everything under the curve and everything under wide open throttle that you'll notice. The wide open throttle thing with the transmission tune, you'll see that in the time slip. Hordelish is saying, thank you, brother. You're the best, man. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for the kind words. Let's see. Kudaman saying, best tuner for my 09 SRT8 Challenger 6.1. I'd say Pikes, man. Send that bad boy down to Pikes. Good thing you don't have to get your computer unlocked. It's an easy tune to work through too. So yeah, give Pikes a call, man. He'll get you sorted out. P-E-I-T-Z. That's how you spell it. SpeedFreak93 is saying, after my PCM is unlocked and reinstalled, will the car still run fine with no issues before the tune and mods are done? Absolutely it will. It'll run exactly like it did when it was stock. I mean, it's just a mechanical change. It's a physical change in the computer that they're making. That's all that it is to allow the thing to be able to be programmed. Nothing major at all. You won't even notice a difference. It can be done overnight while you slept. You get in the car to drive it, you wouldn't know it happened. Let's see. Lone Wolf Customs. If I were building my engine more for torque for a Charger, do you think it would produce better performance? Well, the thing is that it's already kind of there already for you. If you're looking at something, in other words, more for torque, yeah, it will produce better performance under the curve and under partial throttle conditions. The stock cam has got a pretty wide LSA. If you're talking about one of the more modern cars, 2015 and up, you're looking at an Eagle setup. It's going to have a 121-degree lobe separation angle. It just means it's a real clean inlet charge. Exhaust opens a little on the early side, but in the stock cam. But all in all, it's a good enough setup. But it's great for building clean cylinder pressure, and that's the big deal with the stock cam. Is it does make good cylinder pressure. Dynamic compression is nice and high, which gives it very good throttle response. Intake manifold is right there too. You're looking at an intake manifold that is made to build torque. So, you just can't really go wrong. The big issue with any of the Mopars is when you start to mess with cams and any intake manifold or anything like that, like the Edelbrock or the Holly or whatever. The issue that you run into is the fact that these cars are heavy and you need some torque to get the things moving. And, once they're moving, they get out of the way pretty good. And the horsepower part of these cars is really more of a compromise to get you out of the hole to begin with. So, and they feel snappier for it. That's the other thing, is that the throttle response on the 392s is really good. It's because of the intake manifold and because of the stock cam. Let's see. DESRT saying, thank you for the info on the front runners. Will I be able to run the 26s under the 28s? Oh, until the 28s come in? I wouldn't. They're just too short. The car ends up sitting way too low up front. You might be able to get away with it, but I don't know, man. I mean, it pretty much put the car in the weeds up front, and it's not that it was a look thing. It was just that thing kind of turns into the splitter kind of turns into a shovel at that point. So take that for what it's worth, man. 76239 Warrior saying, how reliable are the third gen 6.1 Hemis? They're incredibly reliable. Probably some of the more durable of the Hemis that are out there. I'll put it like this. We never had, that I can remember anyway. Let me think about this. I never had a 6.1 come in that had any real mechanical issue. In fact, not for nothing, but one of my favorite cars to drive was the TTS 62 D100 pickup truck. That thing was awesome to drive, mainly because it had a little bit of a tune on a 6.1 and a nag one in it. That thing was a blast. 3,200, 3,300 pound truck with a 6.1 is a beast, to say the least. But, well, guys, we are coming up on an hour and a half. I'm going to have to check out at this point. Got a long day ahead of me tomorrow. Want to thank everybody for chiming in. Quick break. Thank you so much for the contribution to the cause. I certainly appreciate it. I'm going to wrap it up at this point. Hope everything's going great for y'all. Wrap up the weekend the right way. And that is a wrap for me. Y'all have a great one. Adios.